It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood this morning. Hello, everyone. If you're joining us live, please pardon the technical difficulties. I know there may be a lag or two on my end, but that's just the way it is today. But Justice, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. It's actually a cold, rainy day here, so
Oh,
uh,
great.
it's actually not, which is nice for me because I don't get a lot of that.
Yeah, it's a 20.
Oh, we lost you there. I at least I lost your audio.
Hey, you should hear me now.
Okay, yep. Now I hear you.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about EV market share numbers. Some pretty dire predictions for Tesla's market share, but it's not what it seems because Tesla's still making, as you can see behind you, Justice, they're making
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of cars per quarter, and that's not going to change. What's going to change, Justice?
Market share.
Other
Is-
automakers are going to be
Yeah,
making
yeah,
EVs. Yeah.
yeah. Everyone else is going to start making them in larger quantities, and then that will appropriately shrink Tesla's market share.
Yep. Like, for example, I believe it's the world's fourth largest automaker, Stellantis, that mega conglomerate. They don't have any EVs on sale right now in the United States. They have some plug-in hybrids, but not, the Chrysler Pacifica is a great plug-in hybrid. But they don't have any fully electric vehicles on sale in the US at all right now. Just imagine when that changes and when Chrysler goes all electric by 2028, which is their goal. Yeah, EV market share for everyone is going to change. Goes without saying, right?
Yeah, and Elon has said since the start of Tesla, they want to lose market share. It, the whole idea was to spur other people to make EVs.
Well, it's working. Took a while, but
Yeah,
it's working.
yeah.
Yeah, so
So
we will dive into that momentarily. But Justice, let's start with some other news that might have caught your attention this week. Anything at all that you want to bring up? I'm sure there's got to be something.
I've got a couple of them. Uh, the Toyota Tacoma EV was voted number 2 best EV truck in a survey, even though it doesn't exist. So that
Oh,
so that was a good survey. Good poll of
good
very
survey
useful people.
indeed.
Yeah, so that was fun. Like I love to see the polls where non-existent cars get voted up. I voted for Kit. I think Phil voted for Airwolf. So we saw, but the Tacoma still came in.
That's
Um,
hilarious.
in real news, I know Honda announced that they were going to launch their new fuel cell vehicle in 2024, a hydrogen powered. I think you and I both feel the same about the hydrogen power. I live in
Yes.
California, so I have very specific feelings about it because um, I worked for the governor who tried to institute the hydrogen highway in California um, at the time that he was trying to do it, and I've seen how it goes absolutely nowhere.
Yeah, I'm not against hydrogen just because I hate hydrogen as a molecule. It's the
No.
most common molecule in the universe. Most common element in the universe, excuse me, but it's a
Yeah.
molecule when it's bonded together. H2. That's how it's found naturally. But if you make it cold enough, turns out you can turn that gas into a liquid and pump it into vehicles. Now, I know you and I have talked plenty about why we don't think hydrogen is the future for light duty vehicles, and it might even
Mm-mm.
be difficult to turn this into the future for heavy duty vehicles. I'm going to go ahead and read what I shared on our very own internal channel that you and I were talking about the other day, just because I think the audience might agree or disagree with me. But here's why I have an issue with hydrogen. Um, Almost all hydrogen fuel is created using fossil fuel power. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to isolate liquid hydrogen from water or wherever else you're going to try to get it from. Justice, is that where the majority of hydrogen fuel is isolated from water?
I believe so,
Yeah.
but
Well, what I do know is that it's considered gray hydrogen because
yeah,
you use more power producing the fuel than you're going to get out of it when you put it into a vehicle. And it's not like this hydrogen is being isolated and prepared for use in transportation with solar power and wind power. No, it's mostly going to be natural gas power plants and even coal in many places. It is not clean energy. Sure, it doesn't have tailpipe emissions,
Yeah.
but you got to think about how much energy is going into creating that hydrogen fuel. But Justice, you're the one who got me to think about the other big reason for why I'm against a long-term future with hydrogen fuel as a major fuel source for my own family. Do you have any recollection of what you taught us about how they
Well,
control your pocketbook?
yeah, I mean, so I've always said, it's sort of, I can't think of a better words to use, so I'll just use the words I use. It's trading one master for another. You can't put a hydrogen pump at your house, create your own hydrogen, and refill your car.
Yeah.
So, but you can put solar, you can put the new wind turbines on your house, you can do things to generate electricity and charge your electric vehicle, but you can't do that with hydrogen. And I know in California, at least, where I think almost all the hydrogen stations are, Toyota owns most of those. So for the auto manufacturers, it seems like just another resource to generate revenue. And at $17 a kilogram here in California, that equals to $8.50 a gallon
They've
in
got small
hydrogen.
tanks, right? But still.
Yeah, but it's still $8.50 a gallon.
Yeah.
So I don't see a lot of benefit in hydrogen at all
I don't see
for
why Honda's.
consumers.
Yeah, there's the most hope according to what's that YouTube channel called? Oh, man, fully charged on YouTube. The legendary Fully
Mhm.
Charged. I'm ashamed that slipped my mind. They have a great video out from very recently, looking at the different use case scenarios for the future of hydrogen fuel as a source of transportation power. And what they basically concluded is that maybe cargo ships that
Yep.
might be a feasible use for hydrogen power. Um, Maybe long haul trucking, but even that doesn't look all that promising. Uh, yeah, I've had some people kind of share their thoughts with us in the chat over the past 6 months, thinking that by going electric, you're just letting the government control your transportation source. Now, not going into politics, what I'm pivoting to here is that, well, if you really like having to pay someone for your fuel, then hydrogen might be the way for you. Um, yeah, for sure. Because if you have solar panels and battery backup storage at your home, then you can use the sun to power your EV, but you can't do that with a hydrogen powered vehicle. And Learning Fast in the chat. I just looked that up. That is fascinating. I did not know that this is true. 90% of hydrogen fuel is extracted from none other than natural gas. So that really
I
blew my mind.
I did not know that either, obviously.
Yeah. Thank you for teaching us that.
Yeah.
But so one thing that's going to make
Wha-
this fuel cell vehicle a little bit different is that it will be capable of charging via a plug, but it's going to have a small all electric range. That's what they said. It's not going to be like a 200, 300-mile electric range. They didn't announce the figures, but they've downplayed its fully electric capabilities without hydrogen as a fuel source. So it might be like what we see with the RAV4 Prime or the Prius Prime or the Chrysler Pacifica plug-in, where you're looking at 20 to 40 miles of all electric range. That's cool and all, but I don't see why they're investing in this for the latter half of the decade. And this is a partnership with GM too.
Yeah, and lest we all forget about the Inflation Reduction Act, which is putting in millions of EV charging stations, and I don't believe there's any hydrogen stations in that bill. So we're building an infrastructure that's not hydrogen. So again, it doesn't this move doesn't make a whole lot of sense for consumer vehicles.
Yeah, it doesn't. But I am looking forward to the Honda Prologue EV on the other hand. So it's not all doom and gloom for Honda. I just
No.
hope they're thinking about, maybe they know something we don't, but Justice, you and I, especially you being in California, we do know how hard it is to find a hydrogen fuel station. And I do not see anything making that a more widespread fuel source throughout the country anytime soon, because investment, as you mentioned, is being funneled into fast charging stations, not hydrogen fuel stations.
Yeah. So for perspective, in 2004, I think it was, the governor of California signed a bill to create 200 hydrogen stations in California by 2010. Uh, we have less than 30 in 2022. Uh, where the billions and billions of dollars went, I don't know. I can guess,
Good question.
but we put a lot of effort and time and research into this. This was being hailed in California. Hydrogen is the future. Hydrogen's the way to go. The governor went over to China, talked with them. We did all these projects to really get hydrogen going in California, and with billions of dollars invested and lots of resources, we've come up with almost nothing. So, there's a cautionary tale there.
Yep. I mean, we've seen how long it's taking to get the fuel sources, the charging stations infrastructure set up for electric vehicles. What are we going to do? Like start this process over and wait another 30 years for hydrogen to catch up? I mean, I don't
Well,
know.
and the EVs, really, realistically, the EV infrastructure was created by one company, and then other people sort of started
Yeah.
following. I mean,
Yeah. Maybe Nikola. Remember Nikola? The
yeah, the truck,
maybe
yeah.
maybe they'll come save us and be the hydrogen pioneer just like Tesla did for EVs. Sarcasm.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure that'll happen.
Sarcasm. Yep. Before we dive into our headline story, I wanted to mention that I got to try out a fully renovated Electrify America station the other day. It's in Virginia. It's the second closest Electrify America location to my home, and I was impressed. So this station went from having 3 150 kilowatt plugs and one 350 kilowatt plug to 4 brand new 350 kilowatt um, station stalls. And the maker of these hardware bits was, I think, Signet. It's not ABB, which is the maker of the ones that tend to screw up very often. But it was a completely different manufacturer, good user experience, sample size of one. I've only been there one time so far, but I'm going to be hoping that I see more of these awesome renovated stations, because the one that's closest to me is one of those really outdated, really wonky Electrify America stations, and it needs to go. So uh, I'm hopeful after trying it out.
Nice.
We'll
I
see.
hope I hope they keep doing that, and I hope that's the future of the government contracted ones,
Yep.
not the ones that break down all the time.
Yep. Walter in the chat, this is a good segue to our headline that we're diving into right about now. Walter says, we all need just a reasonable EV to get electric cars moving in America. Maybe like a $40,000 EV with 250 to 300 miles of range and fast charging times in under 30 minutes. There are quite a few automakers at this point saying that's what they're bringing to the market. It's not here yet, but the Chevy Equinox is supposed to be in that ballpark. The Honda Prologue, which is actually built by GM, is supposed to be in that ballpark. Fisker with the Fisker Ocean is around that range. So it's supposed to be happening, but if you look around on the highway, it's not there yet. But perhaps by the end of 2023, 1 year from now, Justice, maybe we'll have a lot more to share on that front. But I totally agree with you, Walter. So the headline today, a new report from S&P Global Mobility says that Tesla is going to lose quite a bit of EV market share by just 2025, a few years down the road. This is no surprise to Justice and I, but I think it's worth talking about the details, because this report is full of more good news than it is characterized by any kind of negativity for Tesla. It's not really negativity for Tesla. What they're saying is Tesla's going to continue to grow, But if you look at Tesla's current and near future product lineup, they're not really trying to grow into the sub $50,000 market. At least it's not a priority for them. We've heard Elon Musk say time and time again that they're going to bring on like a cheaper version of the Tesla Model 3 or something cheaper than the Model 3. But that is not a priority for them as they bring the Cybertruck to market, prioritize growth of Model Y sales, and so on. And that's fine because it's a winning strategy for Tesla. They're doing great, right, Justice? But
Oh yeah.
when you look at the competitors, what's really holding them back is supply chain constraints. I mean, the Hyundai Ioniq 5, which you see there on the picture and in my driveway, Kia EV6, what others? Ford Mustang Mach-E. It's a little bit pricier these days. Volkswagen, they've got a whole bunch of offerings coming out. You've got more and more EVs that are catering to those looking in the sub $50,000 market. I mean, to be honest, I was looking in the sub $50,000 market. However, I ended up having to adjust my price range to get what I wanted in the mid 50s. But Justice, do you think that by 2025, Tesla's EV market share will indeed drop from where it's at today, which is about 66% of US EV sales, to like 25-30%? Do you think that's within the realm of possibility?
I think 30%. Well, by 2025, I don't know by
It's pretty quick.
2025.
That'll time
Yeah, yeah,
flies.
yeah. I think you're probably by 2025, maybe 45, maybe 50%.
Yeah, I agree with
I
you.
think is more likely. But I also think, as I'm sure you're going to hit on here in a second, they will sell more vehicles with that less market share still.
Yep. No, I agree with you totally. Let's see. So this S&P Global Mobility Report, they've got people who get paid a lot of money to crunch numbers and analyze the market in the past and the trajectory that they believe we're heading towards in the future. I'd like to think that this is all a quantitative analysis, backed by numbers, but who knows? They say that, let's see, where's the number? Where's the number? Tesla's EV market share in the US has already fallen from 79% of EV sales in 2020 to about 66% today. They think it's going to fall to below 20% by 2025. I don't buy that.
Mm-mm.
I agree with you, Justice. I think in 2025, that is so soon. That's just 2 years' time. I
Yeah.
think Tesla will be around 50%. Um, I'm going to tell you why I firmly agree with you, and then I want to know if you have anything to expand on, because I think it's all about supply chain constraints for legacy automakers. How many EVs are they going to be able to build? And if we're talking about automakers such as Hyundai Motor Group, which includes Kia, Genesis, even companies like Polestar until they get their US plants online. All of these automakers, especially Volkswagen, they're going to have to decide which global markets they're going to send the limited number of EVs they can make to. I know that Hyundai has said openly a few times that they've prioritized the European market. Canada gets, I think, 500. It's less than 1,000. I believe Canada gets 500 Hyundai Ioniq 5s for 2023. I know it's less than 1,000. It's something pitiful. And I know that on the forums, Ioniq 5 hopefuls were very sad about that up north. So you got to think, how many electric vehicles can the legacy automakers make when still the vast majority of their production infrastructure, their car making plants, is all dedicated towards making traditional ICE vehicles, at least at this point in the decade? Anything you want to add to that, Justice?
No, I think you're right on. I think Tesla's advantage here is that they're already in this EV space, the lithium ion space, the raw material space for EVs. And the legacy automakers, while they've been making cars for years, these aren't the vehicles that they've been making. So they don't have the same connections. They don't have the same supply chain and contracts in place that Tesla and even Rivian and Lucid do. So they're trying to catch up, and I know BMW in particular is trying to pressure their existing suppliers to get into this space so they don't have to change over suppliers and they can keep these relationships. And I think there's a there's a big portion to this that is just who you're partnered with right now.
Yep. Totally agree. And I always love consulting you, Justice, about Tesla's supply chain superpowers, because that is something that I personally have often overlooked. But yeah, it's so important to remember that one of the reasons Tesla has been able to stay at the top for so long, going on over 10 years now in the
Mm.
EV space, is because they have established those partnerships throughout the supply chain where they've got the best battery supply agreements with Panasonic and others. And now they make their own batteries. Um, Even when it comes to how they have navigated the semiconductor chip shortage, we saw that Tesla modified how they build vehicles to reduce the number of chips they needed. That's the kind of innovation that you don't see everywhere. Um,
Well, that's the difference because Tesla's a still a startup mindset, a Silicon Valley, move fast, break things, pivot on a dime company. So they just go, okay, if there's a challenge here, we'll pivot and we'll literally change the way we code things, and we'll change our software, and we'll change the way we build our vehicle if we need to get past this shortage. And other companies just dig in and sort of go, man, well, we're waiting for them to build more chips.
yep. Totally agree. Now, something that I thought about whenever I was reading this, at least some quotes via Automotive News about this S&P Global Mobility Report, was I don't really think that the authors of this S&P Global Report drive EVs, or at least have had much experience with different types of EVs, because I don't think they really perceive the Tesla advantage. Now, I'm not even a Tesla owner myself. I've never owned a Tesla. I have a Hyundai Ioniq 5. Justice, you've owned a Model 3, but think about the supercharger network and how transformative that is for the
Mm-hmm.
entire EV ownership experience. It almost eliminates the major pain point for switching to switching to fully electric transportation, right? I'm going to go ahead and read a quote from the report, and then we'll kind of banter on it. Okay. So it says, I quote, Tesla's position is changing as new, more affordable options arrive, offering equal or better technology and production build. Given that consumer choice and consumer interest in EVs is growing, Tesla's ability to retain a dominant market share will be challenging going forward. And then they say that luxury EVs from Mercedes Benz, BMW, Audi, Polestar, Lucid, and Rivian will plague Tesla at the high end of the market. I have witnessed Rivian owners struggling severely to figure out how to use Electrify America. You're never going to encounter that at a Tesla supercharger station. Um, I don't know. I just feel like they're trying to make a point here, and it's backed by the numbers that they see, especially the investment numbers that legacy automakers are making. But you can't have Tesla drop from 66% EV market share today to 20% in 2 years' time when you've still got the massive lack of infrastructure on the other side of the aisle. I mean, I've thought about selling my car and buying a Model Y because sometimes it's so bad out there when I'm trying to travel and charge publicly. I don't know, Justice. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, this gets in, and I don't want to go down this rabbit hole too far, but this definitely gets into when you're talking about any company owned by Elon Musk or run by Elon Musk, that some of this is more political in nature and seems more hopeful on the writer side than realistic. The
Hmm.
20% and 20% market share by 2025 is just, it's totally unrealistic. Like I said, just from an infrastructure charge standpoint. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't really make sense. It seems more, yeah, it seems less factually based.
Yep. Now, this right here is factually based, even though I think like what we're
Yeah.
getting at here is the takeaway we don't quite agree with. But it says right here that S&P Global Mobility predicts the number of battery electric nameplates will grow from 48 today to 159 by the end of 2025. That's true from all the announcements we're seeing. But here's an example of how that doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot at an industry wide scale. The Cadillac Lyric has technically been out for like 2 quarters now. but they've sold less than 1,000 because they
But
simply can't make that many.
and you could times that number by 100, and there's still only so many lithium mines on the planet. So you can still only source so much of this raw material. So like that's sort of a when we're already up against raw material shortages and we're trying to put contracts in place and we're trying to get new mines online and they're not going to happen in 2 years. Um, it doesn't really matter how many more companies come through and how much is put there when you already have a raw material shortage that the current people can't meet.
That is true. That is true. And the optimism we've seen in the price points from some of the legacy automakers with their EVs, it may not last all that long because when we're talking about like $37,000 Volkswagen ID4s, albeit that's the 208-mile range variant, that's a great price point to put on an advertisement, right? But that is built using batteries that were produced when lithium was about 30% cheaper a year ago, right? At least when that lithium was bought at the wholesale market to be turned into a battery pack down the road. Automakers like GM, Ford, all the others, they're right now kind of freaking out because they're having to think about how they're going to adjust their EV pricing in 2023 at a time when they're trying to be the affordable ones. It's not a good time to be trying to pitch yourself as the affordable EV automaker when all of the cost inputs that go into making an electric vehicle are rising. It's not just inflation, it's a lot of just supply and demand economics. I mean, the demand for lithium carbonate from mines is through the roof. It takes a whole lot of time to get a new lithium mine online. So we have shared time and time again the trends we've seen in lithium prices. I'm gonna pull it up. It's been a few weeks. I want to know what's the latest lithium prices. Um,
Still
yeah,
pretty bad.
yeah, not a whole lot has changed. I'll share it with everyone. So they remain near record highs. They've actually decreased slightly, oh so slightly. But as you can see here, guys, these are lithium carbonate prices at wholesale markets over the past 5 years. There has been a like 300 to 400% increase in lithium prices over the past 4 or 5 years, and the average electric vehicle takes between $8,000 and $10,000 worth of raw materials. That figure is from like a few months ago, so you can imagine it's only increasing from here. Yeah, pretty interesting. But maybe we'll wrap this show up with the innovation factor, which is one of the many things that you have contributed to our conversations, reminding the world that just think, what if we get more energy dense battery packs 2 or 3 years from now?
Hmm.
You would need less lithium, less of all of these raw materials, whether it's cobalt, iron phosphate, who knows what, to get the same miles of range out of a battery pack if you make more energy dense batteries. And that's one thing Tesla has done with the 4680 form factor that they're now building at Giga Austin. So innovation could save us, right?
Yeah, battery technology is going to just keep improving, and those who can pivot quickly to the new technologies, I think will have the best chance of getting actual affordable EVs. Um,
Yeah.
when and where will be the sweet spot? That's the key on those. I wish I
Yep.
knew the answer to that.
We don't have a perfect answer for you, Dwayne, but I am going to share a resource from our own team, published by me, but it's of course the result of many people's collaboration and efforts. We do keep track of EV prices quarterly. We try to update it monthly, but the most solid numbers come out every quarter. And I want to show you, Dwayne, and everyone else who's watching and listening, why the best time to buy an EV is when you can find what you truly want and what meets your use case for yourself or for your family at MSRP or below. Okay, it could be now, it could be next year, it could be 2 years down the road. Because you've seen right here, if you're watching us on YouTube, that EV prices, at least the average EV prices, have remained about $15,000, about $12,000 above the overall market average price, and that includes combustion vehicles. Okay, so if in 2020 the average overall new vehicle price was about $39,000, you still had the average EV price being about $55,000. Today, the average new vehicle price in the overall market is about $44,000. The EVs are running about 62, 63, $64,000. So this is a combination of factors. It's mostly supply and demand. We've talked about the raw materials, and now we've got inflation. If you can find the EV that you want at MSRP, I would say as long as it has the range that you need for your use case, and that depends. Do you travel a lot? The charging speeds that you need to be happy with the ownership experience. For example, don't go for an EV that takes an hour to charge if you'd be pissed every time you had to charge at a public fast charger. Find what would suit your needs and try to find it at MSRP or below. Consider MSRP a big win in today's electric vehicle market. Right now, we're telling people that you can buy a new car below MSRP, but generally that is for not electric vehicles because demand for electric vehicles still way exceeds the demand for other powertrains, even hybrids.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Justice, you work with people all the time helping them out with these types of decisions. Did I say anything that you would characterize as untrue?
No, no. I right now it's. I know we had this question earlier too. Used EVs, they're they're not falling like everybody. I mean, they're falling, but not like traditional cars. So where your sweet spot is really going to depend on your lifestyle and where you live.
Yep.
That's always
Yeah.
my first question when people ask me about EVs. Where do you live? That's my
Yeah.
number one. If they say California, okay, that's fine. Are you in Michigan? That's a whole different story.
Yep. And I would argue that right now, EV incentives in the United States are as generous as they're ever going to get. As EVs become more and more popular, don't expect more incentives, because something that's selling well doesn't really need incentives, right? So why would tax money go into that even more than it already does? So if you don't wait for more incentives, um, don't wait for that.
Well, and to counter Tim here, most of the OEMs have said EVs will be on parity with ICE vehicles in price by 2025. But don't think that means that EV prices are going down.
And I love
We've
that
already,
point.
s- we've already seen MSRP on ICE vehicles go through the roof.
This is
Um,
hilarious.
next year's next year's MSRPs are way higher, like a major increase from 2022. And that's where that's going to go. So yeah, they're going to be on parity on price, no problem. Your ICE vehicle is just going to cost a lot more.
It's sad.
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. You, Ray, and Zach, you've really helped me to learn to think like this, think like the industry, and it's not always benevolent and kind, right? Um,
Is it
yeah.
ever?
Yeah, good
Not
point.
always. I don't know when it ever is.
Yeah, so EVs might, you know, they might only cost 45,000 in 2023, but you're going to see your ICE cars getting more and more expensive to
Yep.
match that. And there you go. Technically, that's price parity.
Yep.
Uh that's wild. Oh man. Yep.
And they're in a perfect position right now to say inflation. Oh, it's
Yeah.
just inflation. It's just inflation. Well, I when you go up more than inflation is in your price, it seems less like inflation and more like you're just using the situation.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Um And you were mentioning how you advise people to consider their EV purchase in terms of where they live. For example, if you live in northern states, you don't want a 150-mile range EV because in the winter it's damn cold outside and you're going to lose a whole lot of range. So I just want to remind everyone that the last episode we did on Tuesday was about preparing for EV driving or EV purchasing in the winter months when it's cold outside, or simply if you live in an area that gets cold quite often, because that can affect your purchasing decision when you start to think about charge times and range. So check out that episode from Tuesday on our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to us from. It was a really, really good one, Justice. I think it was.
That was a great show. That was I learned a lot on that show. Things I don't think about here in California, that definitely people need to consider.
Yep, totally. But I think we'll go ahead and call it a day. It's
Yeah.
been a good show.
Oh, before we go, we have
Hmm.
to congratulate Ford on their selling of their 150th Mustang Mach E. 150,000th.
50,000. Okay.
Yeah, 150,000 Mustang Mach E's. So Farley went out there and congratulated the team. Musk congratulated the team.
Mm.
So
Lord
they're,
Musk.
yes, when Musk says, "Good job."
Yeah.
So I mean, good for them. I'm glad to see those numbers cranking along and doing well.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
And Penny, I meant to get to your comment earlier. I do want to point it out real quick before we go. The Fiat 500e is coming back to the United States in 2024, they have said. But I mean, if you're into that kind of thing, cool, good for you. Personally, I'm not into those super petite vehicles, but it looks like it's going to have better range than the last version, and that gets me excited. WLTP is the European test cycle. I believe it's also used in parts of Asia, but on the WLTP cycle, the Fiat 500e, the newer version, gets about 190 miles on a charge. So once it's tested on the EPA cycle, maybe you'll have a Fiat that you can buy with about 150 miles of range on a charge. I wouldn't wait 2 years for that, but hey, more EVs, better than nothing.
Yeah, and different lifestyles. So if you're an urban driver and you never really leave your city, look, some of those vehicles can be really beneficial to you and nice and cheap. No need to
Yep.
buy an expensive one.
Yep. Well, thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Justice, for joining us again today. And we'll see you guys on Tuesday of next week. And we won't be here next Thursday unless we do a show live together from DC. Maybe we'll do
I,
that.
yeah, I would love to do that. It would be fun to do this in the same room.
Yeah, the YAA family is getting together in uh, Bethesda, Maryland, where we're headquartered. So maybe we'll have a live episode together Thursday of next week. That would be exciting.
We should do a group one.
Yeah.
So you, me,
Several.
Ray, and Zach. Maybe
Yeah.
bring on Phil.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm not a good debater, so
I'll
uh,
bring on Phil. I'll have Phil. But Phil's great because Phil is a. I don't think I want an EV guy without
yeah.
being a no. I'm never going to buy an EV guy. So I
Hmm.
like his point of views.
Totally. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being here today, everyone, and have a great week. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Ciao.
Bye bye.